What's a dirty little secret that you only know because you work in the industry? I'm in insurance. If you call to request an estimate for a claim, they will count it as a $0 claim on your file when they deem the damage not enough to repair. That means when another company pulls your information, it will not only impact your future rates, but might make you ineligible for future policies. Don't ever call insurance for an estimate first. Get a third-party inspector to tell you whether you should file with insurance. Story 2. Insurance broker here. Great advice. They are sneaky little buggers like that. In Canada, we have collision centers. If you hit someone in a parking lot but can't find the person, you're supposed to jot down their information, plate number, and go to the collision center. The center is required by law to report it to your insurance company and contact the other person. Even if it's just a small scratch on a 2003 Honda Civic and the other person doesn't want to file a claim and neither do you, costing the company $0, they will use it as an at fault. Total BS. I learned this the hard way. I hit someone in a courthouse parking lot which has cameras everywhere. I didn't make a single scratch on their old beater, but I felt like I had to do the right thing. So I went in and followed the instructions from the front desk officer. FML. My insurance company called me a week later and said I was at fault. I said, did the third party make a claim? Nope. Did I make a claim? There was no freaking damage at all. I was just doing the right thing. Well, no sir, but we need to use it as an at fault anyway. What? However, we do have minor at-fault collision in Ontario now. Not sure about other provinces, which means any claim with a payout under $2,000 can be labeled minor and won't affect your rates as much. It helps. Still takes away your one-time accident forgiveness if you have it though. Story 3. Work in large-scale construction. Large developers effectively borrow on the credit of all the smaller players who are their subcontractors. You have billion-dollar companies asking smaller companies to pay for them with a promise to pay later. The larger the developer, the slower the process is to get paid. If a project goes bust, it's these small guys that get hit, because all the developers have LLCs that are project-specific. No assets to speak of. Story 4. When you send your food back to the kitchen, we fix/remake and make it right, and typically feel bad if it's our mistake. If it's the server's mistake who put it in the ticket, it's okay if she makes it up with a round of ice water, sodas, or later on beer. If the customer didn't understand what a BLT is and that it had bacon on it, we still fix it but call you an idiot. Side note, servers talking to the kitchen will blame the customers. They said they knew it had bacon in it. Servers talking to the customers blame the kitchen. I told the chef no bacon, I apologize. We don't care. You work for tips, we get paid either way. Here's your BLT. Story 5. Will writer in the UK here. If you have £325,000 in assets or less, and you don't intend to exclude anyone from your will, you need a bog standard will. You don't need a solicitor to write it, and if it costs more than £150 plus VAT, then it's a rip-off. It takes me about an hour's worth of work to gather information and write that will. I would recommend getting power of attorney though. It's a pain in the butt if you lose capacity without it. Story 6. I worked at a Marriott for several years. I learned the following. Bed bugs? More common than you think. There's not much we can do about it. A hotel with frequent international travelers is bound to end up with someone who brought something with them in their luggage every now and then. All we can do is quarantine and clean the room when the problem is discovered. Those sheets are probably not as clean as you think. People in the hallway can hear you banging in your room. Or you watching adult content if you don't wear headphones. Always flip the bolt lock on your door. People make mistakes in booking/blocking rooms. I can't count how many times a room has been double booked, which leads to very awkward and angry interactions. If you had something bad happen to you or are angry at something you booked not working out, make a bit of a fuss. You can usually get free food/drinks or a free night's stay. Don't be a jerk about it. Accidents happen and it's often not the fault of the person you'll be interacting with. But hotels bend over backwards in order to not get a bad review. At the hotel I worked at, every review lower than a 9 or a 10 was considered a 0, so get your money's worth. Lastly, we can smell the smoke/weed coming from your room. We can also smell it on you when you leave. We might not be able to do anything about it when it happens, but you will absolutely be charged for the 1 to 2 extra nights that the room is unavailable while we clean the stench out. Please stop smoking in the rooms. You're the only one who can't smell it. Everyone else can, and we know you're lying. Stop being childish. Story 7. I work in the medical field. This isn't really about my field exactly, but an adjacent field, health insurance. There's a guy reviewing our notes looking for reasons to deny a claim. The guy reviewing generally has no clinical knowledge whatsoever, but they're looking for certain keywords so they can stamp the denial on the claim. For this reason, I will omit certain things on the clinical notes if it isn't directly applicable to what I'm treating, because I know from experience that they will use that word as an indication that the proposed treatment is inappropriate, and therefore denied. Story 8. I work in shipping, and there are absolutely no issues in the industry at all. I've compiled a list of things that don't happen anywhere. No illegal pollution, no illegal emissions, no corruption, bribery, or the likes from any port or government officials, pilots, agents, or even Suez boatmen. No companies are willing to disregard all the rules regarding health and safety and pollution in the interests of making or saving money. No racism, bigotry, nepotism, or any form of discrimination. No incompetent pieces of garbage with fake certificates of competence and sea service who are willing to do whatever any piece of garbage company asks to save money irrespective of international regs. All in all, it's great that oil and gas majors have abandoned direct management of ships and allow the honest, sincere, and passionate high-quality third-party management companies to do it all at lower costs, while maintaining equally high standards. Okay, I feel like the whole constant sarcasm thing works way better in text than it does actually narrating it. Man, that is hard to keep up. But, yeah, I can imagine things get, a little loose legally when everything you're dealing with is international, especially at sea a lot of the time. Story 9. The education system in America is screwed because of contracted employees. I work for an organization called Solient. They own 4 different staffing companies in special education. We place special education teachers, speech pathologists, school psychologists, paraprofessionals, and the like. We pay our employees 60% of what we charge the schools. On an hourly basis, it's a bit more than what a government employee could make, and we keep that margin razor thin. Our executives act like we're doing good work, but we are pulling hundreds on millions of dollars out of educators' pockets and out of schools. We pay lobbying firms to keep it this way as special ed is federally funded. We aren't the only firm that does this, but our org is specifically bad because we have 4 sister companies that work together to drive prices up. Our parent company doesn't care which of the companies makes the money, so we constantly bid up work against our own. Anything that makes educators make less money, I have to hate. I don't have a choice. The education system is already so screwed up. This, not helping at all, I'm sure. Trying to profit off of something as base level as education just doesn't sit super well with me, especially in such an exploitative manner. Story 10. Engagement ring business here. Oh, so many. Most natural diamonds have been in like 2 or 3 rings before they end up in yours. Rings are made with more fragile designs than they used to be, because after you get tired of it breaking / needing repairs all the time, you will buy a new ring, thus giving us more money. This is also why the trends nowadays lean towards dainty and minimalistic with a massive stone, because it's a ticking time bomb. This is also why a lot of jewelry stores won't stop you from getting stones that are too soft for daily wear. Looking at you, Opal. The largest diamond distributor is Walmart. Diamonds that jewelry suppliers discard for being ugly end up on James Allen and Brilliant Earth. Platinum isn't necessarily a better metal than gold. It actually has just as many but very different flaws. We sell it like it's better because it's much more expensive. It's against the law for a jewelry store to say something is made of diamonds and gold if it's not. But these laws do not apply to Etsy sellers. The average woman's ring size is a 6. So we sell rings at a 6.5 to 7 so we can say, oh wow, you're smaller than the average, teehee. The people who beat up their rings the most are nurses, teachers, and office workers. Story 11. Your loved one looks at peace in their casket. But what you don't know is that they have plastic eye caps under their eyelids that are sometimes, not always, glued shut. There are either wires or sutures holding their mouth together, and usually some cotton and a bit of wax on the inside to form that subtle smile. There might be a styrofoam block under their back to make the positioning look more natural and comfortable. There might be styrofoam blocks under the padding to help hold their arms in position. Depending on the case, they're probably wrapped in plastic garments underneath the clothing provided. There are a lot of smoke and mirrors in preparation for a decedent. This is one I actually think is kind of cool. Like, yeah, obviously, dead people don't tend to look that great. The work that goes into making them look good for a service is impressive. Maybe it's because I've been in theater and I know like a lot of other backstage stuff in a different context that I can just appreciate this. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that the people watching the show probably don't know. Story 12. When you order something and it goes through conveyor belts and chutes, it doesn't matter if you write in big, fragile letters. They all go through the same process and can find themselves in a chute where heavy packages can just hit your package and destroy everything inside. Sometimes they get stuck in conveyor belts, ripping off stuff. If the person who sells your stuff doesn't properly package your item, loose in a box, I can guarantee you that it will find itself between a carrier, harmonica, and will be lost in the process or destroyed, hitting edges of side guards. Usually in the morning shift, we have people going over all the sorters to find lost packages and nets. Then it will be repacked for you, but obviously damaged. Not damaged if lucky. People are dumb, seriously. A loose item on a rolling conveyor belt will always be unstable, no matter what. Story 13. I worked at Alta Sciences for a while, a preclinical testing facility. They tested the safe dosages of meds before human trials on rats, mice, dogs, etc. They like to say they do the best for the animals, as the necessary evil sort of situation, but the place is really abysmal. Painting over mold and literal crap, mold in ceilings, never fixing any machines and just expecting people to make it work, hiding bad procedures from visitors, not firing people who straight up kick the animals because they're leads, taking away perks because higher-ups made stupid decisions and we paid for it. IACUC, FDA, USDA also are basically useless as well, since we got enough heads up to scramble a spit shine on the place. The stuff I reported, only one change happened, and that was cleaning the chemical barrel room. Also, trying to report these things is a pain in the butt on top of it. Any actual fixes are the most half-hearted fixes made by someone who is not qualified in the slightest, so it's just gonna break again. There are people who genuinely want to do good by the animals and help push research to help people, but corporate greed combined with burnout makes for a bad time. Also, the pay sucks. Story 14. I recently bought Bose headphones for $300, using most of my tax refund. It was a splurge. The right one didn't hold a charge past 20%, so I got on a chat with a support specialist and answered the dumb, obvious questions until he finally said he would file a replacement ticket. I didn't receive the email with the return label and shipping info, so I called a few days later and spoke to another person going through the whole process again. Still, no email, even after confirming it was correct twice with the person on the phone. Yesterday, I got on a chat again and pasted the original convo I had with the first person into this new chat window, and said, I'm pretty confident y'all are stalling in the hopes that I let this go, but you are a fool if you think I'm going to eat a faulty $300 product. He said, haha, fair enough, and immediately sent the email. More and more these days, customer service is designed to inconvenience you until you give up. It's encrapification incarnate. I think, as a society, we should put more pressure on companies to have good support, personally. Because, first of all, I'm a fan of those jobs existing, and also just because, man, it's true. Trying to talk to a real person and get something done with any company on Earth right now seems absolutely impossible, especially with those god-awful AI chatbots or whatever they're putting on support now. Ugh, absolutely useless. Hate it so much. Customer service and customer support, dead arts, as far as I'm concerned, and they need to come back. Story 15. As a graphic designer working in print/production, there are certain jobs that take minutes to set up, but will still cost a couple hundred or thousands of dollars. Anyone could do it if they took the time to learn the tools. However, there are certain jobs like setting up car wraps or signs that make me confident AI will not replace me anytime soon. Side note, when talking to a designer about a design you want, the phrase, make it pop, means nothing to us. You will be mocked relentlessly if you say it. Story 16. I worked in factory floor automation, and oftentimes the generic products sold at supermarkets are just the brand name product in different packaging. I worked at a massive bread bakery of a well-known national brand, and the bread was all the same. When they finished a lot of their brand name bread, they paused the packaging line, loaded on a new wheel of bags, and kept bagging bread from the same batch in whatever store brand was up next. I saw the same thing at an orange juice packaging plant. There was only one set of production lines, and they turned out a dozen different brands of OJ. It all came from the same oranges and from the same lines, just packaged in different cartons. Story 17. If you've had a credit card or student loan or mortgage for more than a couple of years, the odds that the current lender or servicer still has copies of your original paperwork or any idea how your balance was calculated? Extremely low, especially if the loan has been sold multiple times. If they sue you on the loan, it's their burden to prove that you have a valid contract with them and how much you owe. And often, they just can't do it because they've been unbelievably sloppy with their records or bought the loan from someone else who was. Lenders rely on consumers just continuing to make payments on faith and not showing up to court to fight it or just confessing a judgment when they get sued. Judges are supposed to make the plaintiff prove their case in any lawsuit, even when the defendant doesn't show up. But they often don't review the case very carefully when the plaintiff is unopposed, and some judges don't even know that they're required to hold the plaintiff to their proofs and are surprised to find out. Do not intentionally default on loans you can afford to pay and know you owe. But if you fall into default, always hire a lawyer to make the lender prove their case. I've seen people get hundreds of thousands of dollars of student loan debt wiped away, or go from being on the verge of foreclosure to owning their houses outright, and it's not particularly uncommon. Story 18. Former Uber/Lyft driver here. I've got two. It's not a dirty secret, but it's a secret nonetheless. Rideshare drivers do more than just shuttle people around in their cars. If you're doing it right, you also have to keep all receipts for gas, maintenance, repairs, etc. so you can use them to file your taxes properly. Some of these things you can write off too. We have to balance out budgets accordingly and set aside 30% of what we make because they don't take taxes out of our payments. You can put some of your rideshare skills on a resume too. A more dirty secret is you'd be amazed how many assaults I've had to break up in and around my car. I really wish rideshare drivers got some sort of human trafficking awareness training or something, because the amount of times I've had to save a woman who happened to be my passenger from being followed and chased down the street is wild. We drivers see the worst sides of humanity sometimes, and it can be traumatizing. Story 19. I worked in grocery stores for about 40 years. Notice how most ice cream brands have lids that aren't sealed? When you're working stock, whenever a container falls on the floor, sometimes the lids fly off. Most workers just put the lids back on and put it on the shelf. It happens all the time. Always buy the handful of brands that actually seal the lids on, or you are just asking to be sick. Story 20. Bar. If you ever book a bar as part of an event as the host, you pay all drinks on one bill. Be careful. If you have poured shots on the menu, vodka, rum, etc., hand poured, a lot of your drinks may end up as strong or as doubles. This allows the bar to charge for more drinks when billing is done by the ounce. 20 rum and cokes ordered by guests, but 30 are billed, for example. Best bet is to have coolers or bottled beer. Single-serve bottled drinks that can't be overserved. Story 21. A lot of small-town doctors in my country tell patients that their blood pressure of 160 over 190 is okay, or sugars of 250 to 300 are okay, because if they tell you it's not okay, the patient will think the doctor is saying so because he's a pill pusher, and will do doctor shopping till they find some quack who will agree with the patient that it's okay to have that blood pressure or sugar, because it is normal for their body. What the hell does that even mean anyway? And when these patients get complications inevitably and end up in one of the hospitals in the cities, they don't agree with us when we tell them to control their parameters better because they now have their family doctors who feed them lies. So many patients want the advice of a senior doctor, but these so-called senior doctors probably commit more mistakes than a fresh one from a good institution. Why? Because they're not updated, / have lost the ability to maintain the level of curiosity required to make a good diagnosis, / have gotten swamped by the sheer number of patients that they greedily want to see in a day, leading to overlooking minor appearing significant clinical findings or lab parameters, / don't want to work up too much in case they have to refer to a super specialist. Story 22. I work in a call center for a large cellular company and have a dirty little secret that consists of just 2 words. Ready? Be nice. That's all it takes. There's no need to threaten anyone, be aggressive, or take your anger out on us. We are real people just like you, not a voice on the other end of the line. When you're rude, belligerent, or threatening us, that makes us want to do less for you, and hey, we will. We will do as little as possible, and maybe make you jump through extra hoops for being a jerk. But if you're nice, patient, and treat us like human beings, we will bend over backward to do what we can for you. We didn't cause the situation you're in, and while it's reasonable to be upset about something, it's completely unreasonable to take it out on someone else. Talk to us, tell us what's going on, and give us a chance to help. And hey, we will. Story 23. Servers and kitchen staff don't mess with your food. Worked almost a decade as a server and never saw it once. Why would we? We want you to tell us if something is wrong with your plate. Consider this. If the food comes out wrong and you never tell us, here's what happens. You leave, and when someone else brings up our restaurant, you go, I tried it, but they messed up my order. If you tell us about it and give us the chance to fix it, that response becomes, I tried it, and at first my order was wrong, but the server fixed it immediately and was really cool about the whole thing. We rely on your tips and business. Why would we make you not want to come back? That said, we're human too. And if you treat us like animals, expect to get treated like an animal back. More and more, the days of the customer is always right are going away. Just treat people with respect. Story 24. Reading through all of these excellent responses just reinforces the fact that what we call civilization is an onion skin thin veneer over the alternative. Chaotic, low trust, screw everyone else brutality by tooth and claw. A lot of the secrets mentioned are relatively benign in the grand scheme of things, and frankly draw us together with common experiences, which of course just reinforces the fact that we're all far more alike than any of the superficial differences we have. Just mentioning this because the rank balkanization that's happened to us / among us these past 10 years or so sickens me to the core. Regardless of your camp or tribe, the logical end result of accentuating all of these differences constantly will be brutal. Story 25. I used to work for an alarm monitoring company. When we call and ask for the password, code, or phrase, we will call the authorities on any slight variation or the wrong word, and even the wrong pronunciation of the word. So if your code word was, say, Portsmouth, and you pronounced it Port Smith, the operator will dispatch police because they see it as Portsmouth. That exact scenario happened at my job, and I tried telling the operator that the person pronounces the word correctly and it's a place. They got a supervisor involved who said the operator was correct and they should send the police. We're in Georgia, so they don't take kindly to talking like you got some edumacation. Halfway through this, I was terrified I was saying Portsmouth wrong. But no, the point is that by saying it correctly, it's not what's written technically, so the operator called the police. Wild. Story 26. Lonely old homeowners are being preyed upon by scummy people who will befriend them, pay the property tax on their house for them, and end up taking ownership of the house instead of their inheritors. They end up in possession of the home for a fraction of its value, and it's legal. They can find victims by searching online for who has their home paid off in real estate databases. Nobody is doing anything about this, and in many cases the heirs are distant or estranged, and they don't even know they've been robbed of an inheritance until it's too late. Story 27. I work in a pharmacy, currently a specialty pharmacy with complex/expensive/uncommon drugs, but I've also worked retail. Medical professionals, doctors, pharmacists, nurse practitioners on all levels are just as fallible and human as the rest of us are. I've met some of the dumbest people of my life in this industry, and because they have a very expensive and time-consuming degree, they will be the most confidently incorrect people you will ever meet. I've had arguments you wouldn't believe, from some very simple math, 4 weeks is 28 days, not 30, God, to confusing some of the most common medications in the world. I've had a doctor scream at me that prednisone is an antibiotic, not azithromycin. For those of you who know, it's like, what the hell are you smoking? I've had pharmacists who think the COVID vaccine is a liberal lie to use us as guinea pigs while giving us 40 plus vaccines a day. And yes, that's plural pharmacists. To summarize, they're people, prone to the same biases, error in judgment, and personality flaws as anyone else. But yes, they are still your best bet when it comes to medical stuff. I'm not anti-doctor or anti-medicine or anything like that, but be discerning. Don't think them infallible. Ask questions. And don't be afraid to shop around if your doctor is a schmuck, because a bad doctor is one of the worst frickin' things on this planet. Oh, also, by and large, doctors are jerks. They have a genuinely inflated sense of ego simply because they tortured themselves enough to finish medical school. Not all doctors, not all the time, but it's a startling trend. Story 28. If the public knew the reality of how many animals are euthanized year on year within the zoo industry, and how many that are kept off show are held in awful conditions to the point of also being euthanized, and how many die to poor maintenance because of cost-saving exercises and because of management ignoring the advice and pleas from zookeepers, more would be screaming for them to be shut down. And I'm sure not all zoos are the same, but I've worked in 3 major zoos, and how management treated the staff and how they regarded the animals was simply abhorrent, with rampant open sexism and discrimination. Hence why I ditched the industry. It was crushing my mental health. Story 29. There is an enormous amount of corruption and insider trading in IT. The CTOs of all the biggest companies all sit on investment boards and are part of seed funding groups, VC orgs, etc. These groups will pick tiny companies to add to their portfolio. Then other members will guide their companies in assigning contracts with those little companies, unicorning their stocks. Example, let's say I'm the CTO of Citibank, and my friend in our group is the CTO of Exxon, and we're both part of Cash Money Ventures. Since I work at Citi, I probably have no conflict of interest in cloud-based land survey tech, so I'm safe to manage a relationship with Unicrude, the cloud-based super disruptive oil survey tech bro startup. I create a relationship with them, then I tell my Exxon CTO buddy to make sure that they sign a contract. If you work at a big company and ever wondered possibly several times a month, why the hell did our company buy this software solution? Something like the above scenario is probably why. Story 30. Worked almost a decade in nonprofits. Many nonprofits are nepotistic paradises made to cater to the friends and family of those in charge, providing jobs even if they don't pay well to extremely underqualified people under the guise of providing a community service or educational purpose by those considered to be the best of the best. Nonprofits also never use gathered funds as intended or advertised, and will only hire those in lesser positions if they can fill back-end BS work that higher positions don't want to do. In other words, they only hire those who make their jobs easier, and not those who can further or improve the nonprofit's goals, almost entirely due to job security. Merit generally means nothing, so climbing the ranks in nonprofit, virtually impossible, unless you have someone in that company willing to pull you up. This sucks to hear, especially as an artist, because so many art things are nonprofit. But I've definitely heard some issues with nonprofit art places in my town, so I definitely believe it. You would hope that nonprofits are like the last place for any sort of ill will. Like, they seem like a wonderful altruistic thing, right? No surprise, it's all the same. It's all the same everywhere. Anyway, that is the last story for today. If any of you have any stories and you want to make me even more disappointed in companies as a whole, throw them in the comments. I have plenty of sighs left in me. For now, though, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I will see you in the next one.